Okay, well, if you're a faithful follower, you already know whose machine this is. This belongs to Tammy Cooper out of the great state of Ohio. And Tammy, as you may recall, is the one that shipped this to me. It's a 1953 Singer 1591. And the base in particular was damaged very badly in shipping. So we did all kinds of a rebuild. If you haven't seen that yet, then check it out on Facebook, or you can look at the previous video where I did a demonstration of Tammy's machine and showed those pictures that came off of Facebook, if that makes sense. So I've already done some preliminary work on this, because otherwise this video is going to go 2.5 hours. And I don't think my battery will run that long. So a couple things I'll point out for you. I've already wrapped the foot controller. You want to stretch wrap the foot controller first with the cord and everything, and then do at least 2 to 3 layers of bubble wrap around it. And then, just as a courtesy, I always mark it for the customers so that they know exactly what's in that package. And then I always pack it in the harp space. It goes right into the harp space. Now, some of the other unique preparation on Tammy's machine to safeguard it in its journey back to Ohio is strapping the base as well. So I start by going around the base with stretch wrap, probably about 6 to 8 times, with a lot of tension as I go around that base to compress it in on all sides. And then to reinforce that, I go around it about 3 to 4 more times, very carefully, with strapping tape to reinforce that bonding around it. And then also, whenever you're shipping in a case that has a machine mounted in it, you always want to anchor it on both ends. So I've got it anchored on this end over the needle plate with about 6 to 8 wraps of stretch wrap, again with a lot of tinsel pull down to really make that secure. And then I reinforce it again with strapping tape very carefully, about 3 to 4 wraps around that. And the same thing on the other end, just below the balance wheel. Start with stretch wrap, and then here I carried it all the way out just to the edge, and then reinforce that again with strapping type tape to make sure that that's nice and secure, so that the machine is not going to be able to move, so that that base receives additional support. And we've just got a winning recipe to try to keep this machine safe on its journey back. And it doesn't matter whether it's going to Ohio, whether it's going all the way over to Hawaii to Dan, or whether it's going all the way to Japan to another customer that I shipped a machine to. You always take exactly the same precautions, because we have no control over what happens while it's in transit, whether it's going by USPS as I typically ship, or whether it's going by UPS or by FedEx or any of the other couriers out there. You just have to be extremely careful. All right, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to continue the process now, and if we run out of recording time or space, I'll try to pick it up in a follow-up type premiere. Okay? All right, some more music. That was a beautiful piece, wasn't it? All right, a little bit different here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to protect the machine itself that's going to be canopied inside of that Bentwood cover. And there's 2 areas that I always provide extra protection to. One is the plug-in point over here, because it's a fairly fragile plastic housing that plug plugs into. And then on the front of the machine, on the 1591, I always provide a little bit extra protection to the tension control, and also the light as well. Just because these are areas that are a little bit more susceptible to damage, and I like to take extra steps. So we will cut a couple pieces to try to add extra protection to those areas, and then we're going to stretch wrap it down. So the first piece I'll do is for the upper tension control that's on the faceplate on this model. And I'm just going to kind of set it over here because the reality is, until I stretch wrap it, it's not going to stay in place. That would be cool if it did, wouldn't it? But it won't. And also I'm going to add just a little bit of tape to this, adding a little bit of tape to this and I've got 4 layers here to protect the upper tension. I'm going to go a little bit thicker on this end that has that plug-in point, because that's even more vulnerable. So I'm going to do 4 layers and then fold it one more time, and 8 layers. I could almost do this on a sew-off, couldn't I? Wouldn't that be cool, huh? So we'll do the same thing. We'll anchor this with a little bit of tape so it doesn't unravel on us. And again, I've got 8 layers on this end to protect that plug-in. I'll just set it over there because then we're going to stretch wrap in place. And then lastly, the light. And the light did get cracked a little bit in transit. I did not replace the light, but I did do some reinforcement bonding on it to try to protect it from being broken further. So we'll also put a little bit of protection around that light, just because we know it was already damaged when it was en route to the workshop, and we don't want it to get further damaged. So, and with this one, I'm going to kind of look at the spacing on it. Probably going to do 4 layers on this light as well. And what I do is I kind of just tuck it in between the machine and the light as best as I'm able. And then just come around the front of the light. Let's see. I don't want to use that. I'm going to use my caliper. Just real carefully to tuck it in there. Okay, that's good enough because the stretch wrap will hold it in place. And all we're doing is providing a little bit of extra cushion. That's all we're trying to do. I've got to play this song one more time. I really like it. This one is the last one you just heard is called Through and Through. This one is called Chords of Harmony. Totally appropriate, don't you agree? I should do more unboxings because then I can play as much music as I want. I love it. All right, so let's put this strapping stretch wrap together now. We're going to start. Actually, I'll start on the bottom and kind of work my way up. Move that out of the way. As you work your way up, you can incorporate that extra padding as you see fit. So I'm getting really close to that upper tension point right now, and I'm actually going to sneak this in first over here on this side just to get that tucked in as well. There we go. We'll run it a couple of times to make sure it doesn't move. Now we're going to add that extra padding for the upper tension control. Oops. There we go. Okay, we're getting close now to where we can add the light. And the one thing I didn't point out is, in order to make it easier for the customer, I always have the machine threaded, obviously, and to make sure that that machine doesn't come unthreaded, I always anchor the spool with some painter's tape around here so that that spool doesn't spin loose in the box and they open it up and it looks like a catacomb of thread everywhere. And then I also anchor the other points along the track all the way down past that thread that comes to the rear of the machine from the needle and I anchor that down as well. So it's just a courtesy, because I want my customers to you know, have a wonderful experience, a wonderful customer service experience, and not to be troubled by anything that's going to get in the way of them beginning to enjoy that machine that I've had the privilege to send to them. And then across the top, I always anchor the thread. I kind of come diagonally, tuck it around the edge, and just kind of create a nice closure on the top as best as I'm able. Kind of come back across diagonally here, around again, anchor it. Across the top again, that's our final little gap point. And then we'll reinforce that with tape to create a nice little dome across the top to keep that machine covered and secure. So we just anchored our little end there, and then what we do across the top here is piece after piece, we just kind of come across the top and create a nice closure. Are you able to see that? Yeah, you can see that. Nice closure all the way top, anchoring those pieces across the top so that they're secure. Again, our goal is real simple. If you were to say, Scott, what is our ultimate goal in your packing method? The ultimate goal is to make it a single unit. Everything, as best as we're able, we try to connect it. And again, it goes back to the principle of God's genius in protecting those little chicks inside of the eggs by making that egg in such a way that it's all integrated together to create a perfect outer shell, and then all the other protection that's afforded to that little one that's growing inside of the egg, etc. So hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully that analogy isn't totally ambiguous enough that you're going, what the heck is he talking about? Or I made you hungry and you're saying, well, God bless chicks, but I like eggs too. And I would be in that same camp. So, all right, how about a little bit more music so I talk less? All right. Ooh, this is jazzy. This is a fun one. So, what we have right now basically on the outside of Tammy's machine is we've got a reinforced shell across the top where we added that tape to make sure that none of that comes undone. We added our extra protection and padding to the critical areas that I already pointed out to you. Now we have to make the rest of this a single unit, and we do that by going around the machine with our strapping tape to make sure that all of that stretch wrap that we put on there is secured and anchored properly. And you can kind of press it down as you go. So now we've extended our shell from the top down to the sides. Now that stretch wrap has the reinforcement of that strapping tape going around the edges to protect it. I'm just going to do a little tuck right here because you can see that our extra padding is kind of sticking out, and I want to anchor that as well. So I just add a little bit of tape to it, bring it to the body, and then just wrap it around so that that's not loosey-goosey. Okay, so now we've got our machine protected to some degree, at least with stretch wrap and tape. Now we have to add a little bit of protection, and we're going to have to watch our thickness on this because we're going to be ultimately putting that bentwood cover over the top of this, and end to end we're good to go. But front to back, we've got to be a little bit more cautious because the thickness factor can come into play where that bentwood cover will not clear the edges. I'm just adding a little bit more reinforcement to the back here real quick, because our potted motor kind of sticks out a little bit, and it will just provide a little bit more of a shell protection there. And I'm gonna, just real quick, if I can sneak it in, I'll see if I can while the music is beginning to start up here. I got a really neat note. I had inquired about an original owner machine on eBay. I don't buy a lot on eBay, but once in a while I do find a treasure. And the gentleman selling it is out of Minnesota. And he wrote me back when I posed a couple of questions. He wrote me back a note with some comments that really just made me realize how we can make a huge impact on someone and not even realize it. I'm going to see if I can find that note. I hope I can. Looking for the note right now, folks. Sorry about that. I will find it. I'm determined. Oh, my determination isn't filled with disappointment. Well, maybe I won't be able to find it. Doggone it. Any rate, what the message said, this is a gentleman again out of Minnesota. What the message basically said was that I had been a real big influence in helping this gentleman to know how to set up a... Here we go, I found it, at last. Ah! So here's what he writes back. And again, I was inquiring about a machine he was offering for sale. He says, "Hello, Scott," and I can actually show you on screen so you don't think I'm making something up as a shameless plug. So I'll read it now. So he says, "Hello, Scott, I'm a fan. You are at least part to blame for me buying this machine in the first place," and he's referring to the machine I was curious about, along with the 10M 12 CL21A 19E Special 49E 6030. I've sewed with it. Pulled out the bobbin thread first try. I do not know about the shuttle, and he's answering some questions about that machine. Let's see. I'm gonna kind of bypass some of this. So he goes on to say, both of them. That's more the question. I'm sorry. I also believe their story of needing to downsize. So this is where he's talking about acquiring some of these machines. And he goes on to say they are currently working on a complete teardown and a repaint of a featherweight. I have shipped sewing machines successfully based upon your videos. A green Necky Nova in original case was a tank of a double box padded immobilized machine. All my shipping has been praised thanks to you. So that's neat. Isn't it neat sometimes when you just get a note out of the blue, and maybe you're even, a little bit blue about something, or you're just like melancholy, and you're like, oh, maybe people don't even notice. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get a message like this out of Minnesota, where someone says, "You've inspired and you've influenced the way I pack machines, and I've gotten so many accolades and so much praise as a result of me learning from you, Scott." So that's, yes, That's cool. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go to another song. All right, so what we're going to do is add a little bit of padding now. Again, we're going to probably only going to be able to do 2 or 3 wraparounds because of the front to rear clearance that we're going to need for that Bentwood cover. So I'm going to just rip some off of my big roll here, kind of approximating, and then we'll get this next stage done. And again, it's my preference, but I always put the bubbles facing out, kind of like creating a little airbag of sorts for the machine. Okay, so we anchored it on that end, and then we just begin the process of wrapping it around the machine. And again, when you wrap it around, you don't have to torque it, but get it nice and snug. Again, our goal is to make a single unit, and we can accomplish that in every stage of the process. I may have gotten too much torn off here, maybe not. So we're already up to 2 layers on the front, and we're about to get to 2 layers on the rear, and then I'll just kind of monitor our thickness factor to make sure that we don't create a problem as far as that Bentwood cover being able to clear the padded machine on the inside. But I think we're going to be pretty golden here. Alright, so what we ended up with, and I went a little bit thicker because I'm looking at clearance, I think we'll be okay. I've got 4 layers padding and protecting the machine on the inside of what's going to be the Bentwood cover space. So then just anchor it in place. You've seen me do this before. And now we're going to stretch wrap it in. Again, we want to make these 4 layers, in essence, a single unit, and we do that by stretch wrapping it in. So, and again, start at the bottom and just really, and here you will want to kind of strap it in a little bit, get it nice and snug. Depending on the type of stretch wrap you're using. Some of the cheaper stuff can tend to break. Even my stuff that is a little bit on the heavier side as far as tensile strength can break sometimes as well when I really start to ratchet it down. Yep, we're looking good on the back. That was my only concern, is making sure that that back would clear. So we're almost up to the top of the machine, and here we're going to do a little bit of an adaptation. Let me go ahead and break that off. Then we're going to do the same thing as we did on the inside. We're going to reinforce that stretch wrap to create a shell by going around it with our strapping tape. And here I just kind of fold it in. Hopefully you can see that. Let me check my shot here. I think I had that cut off a little bit. I'm sorry about that. There we go. I think that'll be pretty good. And then what I do is I just tuck that in and then go ahead and anchor that down as well. That last song I played, if you're curious, is called Liquid Time, and the next one I'm going to put on is called Till Death Do Us Part. So once again, just kind of take this little tuft on top and overlap it. So you'll fold the, I usually fold the, actually I'm doing it backwards. I usually fold the back in first, and then I fold the front over the top of that. And then just kind of have a piece of tape in the ready to kind of anchor that down as best as you can. So we're going to add an extra piece there as well. And then you just work those edges down. Just work those edges down. And I'm not going to add anything else to the inside where the machine is. All we have is the foot controller. I've got some of the other stuff that Tammy sent with. That'll be packaged separately and be put around the machine in the massive tote that I had to get to accommodate the Bentwood cover. And I'm just going to add a couple of extra ones across the top here. Okay, so now we have, excuse me, now we have a machine that has been, I think, given sufficient protection. We created that 4-layer shell around it, along with the stretch wrap, reinforcing all of that with the strapping tape as well. And now I'm confident that this machine is going to be secure from this standpoint. We've anchored the base, we've reinforced the base around the entire unit. Now we've protected the machine head itself and given it a real nice padding in the event that there was a catastrophic, that there was catastrophic damage and it compromised the Bentwood cover. We still have protection enough that the machine head should be able to survive something catastrophic, which we are hoping that we do not experience. Because we all know that the U.S. Postal Service is extremely attentive to these magical stickers that I put on all of my machines that I'm shipping out. You know that they just, almost like an E.F. Hutton commercial, if you're familiar with that, they just pause and they say, oh my gosh, this is a package from Cow Country Vintage Sewing Machines and Restoration from Scott, and it says fragile, so we're going to really pay attention to that. And if you believe that, I've got swampland down in Florida near Bill O'Rourke that I'm happy to offer to you at a real good price. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got our Bentwood cover. Our machine is secure. We're not going to be adding anything else. All of our anchor points are complete. And now we're going to try to get this Bentwood cover in place as best as we can. Had to kind of wiggle it a little bit to get it into place there. And now I'm going to be locking the case, and being the very smart guy that I am, occasionally I'm going to put the key on the outside of the Bentwood cover case. What do you think of that? Impressive! All right. Making sure that I have it locked correctly. And because I had to shift that forward a little bit, I'm going to have to there thought I had her. See, that's what happens when you start strapping things down and everything, is it it does create tension spots that you have to kind of overcome. So at this point, the case is locked. Let me check my shot, because this is a totally different level as far as height and everything. Right now our case is secure. Originally I was, because Tammy did not have a key when she got this, she did not get a key with it. I was able to locate a key, and so I'm going to be sending it to her locked. Otherwise, what I would have to do is, if I weren't able to lock this, then I would have to add even additional anchor points strapping around this from front to back to keep this from popping open in transit. But right now, we are good to go. Yay! So again, just a quick tip to you, Tammy, since you're going to be opening this, because of that extra padding on the inside, it kind of pitches this end of the case back a little bit. So when you open it, just be aware you're going to have to kind of adjust this forward a little bit and then turn that key to release the lid. There's going to be a little bit of tension pushing it to the rear, if that makes sense. Okay, so even though we have it locked, that locking mechanism is not going to give me peace of mind to know that this thing is going to stay closed and secure. So I'm going to rotate it like this. And I'll have to check my shot, obviously. Also, you always want to, when you're working on the edge of tables, check that weight distribution to make sure that it doesn't suddenly pitch off the table unexpectedly. That would be bad. Alright, so we got to adjust our shot a little bit more so you can kind of see kind of what I'm doing. Good. Alright, excellent. So, and then I'm going to put on a little bit more. This one says it's kind of dance music, so this ought to be fun. Okay, so what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be anchoring this Bentwood cover lid down. Even though we have it locked, that's not enough. So we come right around the crown of it, like so. And you want to make that strapping point probably around 3 inches wide and take it all the way to the edge. Okay, now if you counted that, you're better than I am. I do it instinctively. I think I got about 6 to 8 wraps around there. And now we're going to reinforce that, making sure we stay within the boundaries of the stretch wrap. I'm going to reinforce that so that we have that strapping tape to support that stretch wrap. And I would say probably go around 3 to 4 times. And just gently kind of press it down. You can kind of hear, maybe you can't hear it, but there's like a popping sound. Again, we're taking those layers of strapping tape, we're making it a single unit to support that stretch wrap that is holding this Bentwood cover lid in place, and taking the stress off of that little lock on the other end that otherwise would be responsible for holding this entire unit together. We're going to do the same thing on this end. Again, take it all the way to the edge of the case. And now we're reinforcing again with strapping tape. And just one more wrap. Again, I don't count, so if you're real persnickety and you count and you go, well, he only did 6 on that end, he did 8 on this end, good for you. Oh man, that's funny. So let me rotate this around now, and you can see at this point we've got the Bentwood cover case obviously locked, anchored to our base that we repaired, and now we've got these strapping points on both ends to give a single unit from that Bentwood cover to the base, and then we've reinforced it as you just saw me reinforce it. Now we need to protect this beautiful finish. We went to the effort of kind of roughing it up and adding that new veneer, that new stain to it. Now we're going to go around the entire unit and try to protect that finish, and then we'll finally add another layer, another probably 4 to 5 layers of bubble wrap around that as well to protect that. Followed up obviously then by the stretch wrap, and then strapping all that down. So that last one was called Reggae Dance and Music. This next one is This Is Not Effortless. This is not effortless. Kind of like our packing job right now is not effortless. I usually drink probably 1 to 2 bottles of water in the course of packing a machine, which when I'm recording I tend to forget, which probably isn't good. So I'm going all the way down to the base, all the way down to here with a stretch wrap, and I'm going to work my way all the way up to the top. Again, we're just adding another layer of support to that newly repaired base, so that it doesn't have any stress points that can make it vulnerable. And I do tend to go up and down. You'll see me work my way up, and then I work my way back down again, just to crisscross that stretch wrap, make it a little bit more secure. And again, I'm working my way all the way down to the bottom as far as the strapping tape to reinforce that layer of stretch wrap we just put on. So you can kind of take a look at that now. So we've got our layer of stretch wrap on there. And now if you're really attentive, what you're going to say is, wait a second, we got to make another part of that phase a single unit. And you're absolutely right. Right now we've got the stretch wrap overlapping our reinforcement to hold that Bentwood cover to that base. So now we have to join that with this stretch wrap that we just put on. And we can do that with just a couple of larger pieces of tape, so that again that stretch wrap isn't just floating near the top, but now it's anchored It's now anchored to that other strapping that we put on to attach the Bentwood cover to the base. And we do the same thing on the other side. And I use my hands to kind of feel around to see if there's any gaps that I somehow created where there's like a separation between that stretch wrap and the little tape reinforcement that I brought around, but it feels good to my hand. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of tape across the top of here that I couldn't get to when I came around as easily to reinforce that very top seam that's at the edge here. Do the same thing with the back. Okay, so you can kind of take a look at that again as I throw on another song. This next one's going to be called Dreamland. Dreamland. All right, so now what we're going to do is add our next layer of protection. We're going to be going around this 4 to 6 times with bubble wrap. And then we'll go through the same process again of reinforcing it with stretch wrap, reinforcing it with strapping tape, and that'll create our final shell of protection to the sides of this Bentwood cover. But then we'll have to add something to the top and add something to the bottom as well. Space, even on a big table like this, is always a problem. It's always a problem, because you have to be able to work around the unit that you're strapping and trying to work it around the edges. I bump into cameras, I bump into all kinds of stuff. That's why I removed some of the stuff off the workbench. You may have noticed that. My pictures of famous sewers. All right, let's see what we can do next. I'm hoping that I can just wrap it around with a complete unit without having to take everything off again. That'll be a pain. Okay, so we're going to come across the front of the Bentwood cover with our bubble wrap again, bubbles facing out. And I've got to anchor my point over here. Again, that's the reason that we stretch wrap something like this that has a beautiful stained veneer on it, is we don't want that tape to inadvertently make contact with it, or we'll have a mess. We'll be undoing all of our work. All right, let's see if we can sneak around. If you hear anything fall, just ignore it. That's what I do. And again, make sure that bubble wrap, as best as you're able, is tucked all the way down to the bottom. We want to extend it from this above midpoint all the way down to that base again. So we're adding that extra protection to the entire unit. Yeah, I almost knocked off my camera there. I'm talking about the vintage camera in the rear. I call it my Kennedy camera. It's kind of like the camera that was used to film that famous footage of that horrible event down in Texas with President Kennedy. So right now, if you haven't been counting, because I wasn't, we're up to 3 layers. So we're going to add about 3 more wraparounds as I knock things off. There they go. That's okay. I can always put it back. So now we're up to 4 layers, and again, just make sure that as you come around, that backside doesn't pull up. We want to keep that protection from that base all the way to the topmost point. Alright, any of you persnickety people, how many layers do we have? This will be 5. 5 across the front so far. So we're just about there. We're going to go to 6. 6 layers. Alright, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have to go around one more time to bring us up to 6 on the back of the Bentwood cover as well. And then we'll kind of stop somewhere on the side over here. We can overlap it a little bit. I'm not skimpy when it comes to packing, as most of you know. If I have to use extra bubble wrap, I use extra bubble wrap. If I have to use extra tape, and so on. Because cutting edges in packing is usually going to come back to bite you, and it's not worth it. It's not worth saving those few pennies or even few dollars to have a machine that you've invested a lot of time getting ready for that customer arrive broken or damaged in some way. So now we created our next layer of protection, 6 layers of bubble wrap around there. I'm going to add a little bit of music, and then we're going to go ahead and strap it down. And this next one is called Invisible Beauty. Invisible Beauty. Then I'm going to have to do another search because I will have gone through all of my songs. So does this make sense? Does this make sense what we're doing? We're creating layer after layer after layer like an onion, and we're making each one of those layers a single unit, which is what we're about to do with these 6 layers of bubble wrap now. Let's do that. And when it comes to this phase, I always kind of tilt the container a little bit to get right to the edge. So you'll see me kind of tilting the machine, or lifting the machine, to try to get right underneath that edge with the stretch wrap. A little bit more awkward when you're doing it left-handed, but I'll do my best. Notice I'm kind of stretching, not to be redundant or to be punish, but I'm like punish like pun. I'm stretching it along the edges here to pull it nice and taut over the very top edge of that bubble wrap. So right here, I'll do it real slow. I'm bringing it right to that edge and then pressing it down, so I've got that all the way up to the edge. We don't have any loose ends that are potentially going to come undone or be compromised as we're transporting. Again, I never look at it like, oh, okay, I'm going to Ohio, or I'm going to ship it to Hawaii, or I'm going to Japan. My process is the same no matter what distance that machine is traveling to, because I've had experiences where I've gone real close, and I'll just say it real blunt, whoever was handling that literally beat the hell out of that container. I don't know if they were angry or what it was, but man, oh man, they just went after that container big time. So that wasn't where I was going to end, but apparently it is. So, so now we're going to reinforce our stretch wrap with strapping tape. Okay, and again, then just gently work that down, press that down a little bit with your hands. Again, our goal is to make it a single unit, so we want to make sure that that tape is nice and secure to the top of that stretch wrap. And if you see any weird little anomalies, like there's a little tuft or something, what I'll do then is I just add a little piece of tape to it to press it down, because I don't want that sticking up and getting caught on something. Does that make sense? Of course it does. You guys are the smartest ever. So now we've created a wonderful situation as far as our level of protection, but now we've created a problem again. These two are not a single unit. Remember, we just added that that bubble wrap, the 6 layers of that, we added the stretch wrap over that, we added our tape over that, but now this is loosey-goosey, so now we have to anchor that again to that original anchor point on the top from front to back. And I usually add about 3 pieces of tape or so. Because again, we don't want to have anything just kind of floating there and potentially compromise the integrity of all the other efforts we made to make that a single unit. So now we've made this a single unit. See? It's nice and secure across the front and the back. So I think I've been migrating to the left as I was packing that. Try to get it semi-straight again so it's within the field of what you're seeing. I think it is, yeah. Now we have to add our tape over here to make that a single unit. And again, just, be careful when you're applying tape when you have a veneered finish like this. That's why I said when you did the stretch wrap, bring it all the way to the edge. But here, a little bit of that stretch wrap is kind of pulled back. So now I have some exposed veneer here, which is okay. But we just have to be aware when we lay down that tape that we don't put it over a section that isn't protected by that stretch wrap. Or when Tammy goes to unbox this, she'll pull some of that tape away and have veneer on the end of it, which isn't good. That's not my goal. So this is where most people would stop. This is where most people would say, okay, I'm done. But what we have to do now is we have to create protection for the top of this unit, because we have exposed Bentwood cover veneer with this dome part right here. And if you've never had one of these close enough to examine it before, when they built these, and you'll see them do that in that video that I took you on the tour of Kilbowie, this Kilbowie, Scotland Singer factory. This stuff is real thin, and that's how when this was being transported from Ohio to here, and that machine broke loose inside of the Bentwood cover, it was able to punch a hole right through the front. This stuff is real thin, so we have to apply equal protection to both sides of this. I'm not as concerned about the handle, because the handle is going to have a buffer zone of about 2 to 3 inches inside of this large tote that I bought to put Tammy's machine in, but we have to protect this. So that's what we're going to do next. And we'll probably do the equivalent of about 4 or 5 layers kind of rolled here and here to accomplish that. This is our last song. Holy mackerel. This one is called Just Stay. And then I'll have to do another search to get us more music. And I better take a quick swig of water, because if you're sitting there watching this and I'm doing all the work, I need this. And also, I have to tell you, I have a secret fuel when I'm packing up a machine, especially that requires a lot more attention, like a machine like Tammy's that's in a Bentwood cover. Skittles. Do I have anyone else out there that is an absolute Skittles addict? Are there any other Skittles addicts? I'm not alone, am I? Come on. Type it in the chat. If you love Skittles, type it in the chat so I know I'm not alone, please. And I'll grab a quick handful of those too. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the magic stuff right there. Where's my battery power? Oh, I'm okay. Skittles, when you bite into them, they just explode with goodness, don't they? Oh, wow. Talk about a way to kick in the salivary glands. So what I'm going to do now is take my roll of bubble wrap and tear off probably about 8 to 10 squares so we can create our next. It is impossible to talk right now with this stuff. Just kicking my salivary glands in. Good thing I'm off camera. I'm probably drooling. Ah! All right, there we go. So again, bubbles facing out. I kind of just fold it in half. Find those magic ends. It's almost like folding a flag, but not nearly as precise. Then I'm going to fold it in half one more time, so we're up to about 4 layers right now of protection. So about 4 layers right now. Then I'm going to fold it like this, lengthwise, kind of in half. So it's kind of like when I do my sew-offs, we're all the way up to 8 layers now. And that should be just about right to get us to a point where we're going to be able to provide a great deal of coverage to that exposed area across the top of this Bentwood. So I'm going to real quick go like this so I can grab some tape and anchor this so it doesn't unravel. I'm going to go like this, and I'll pick it up away from the Bentwood cover veneer, which is exposed right now. Yeah, we'll need one more piece. I didn't do such a good job in tucking that over. There we go. So now we've got our 8 layers, and I'll start on the back. So I'm going to bring that all the way flush with the handle, because I'd like to leave the handle accessible to Tammy so that when she gets this out in Ohio, she's able to get a grip on that handle to be able to lift it out of the packing tote. Again, my philosophy is make it as easy for your customer as possible. If you're even a competitor watching this premiere, oh, we're at the end. See that? If you're even a competitor and you're watching this, I'm going to give you all the tips so you can be successful with your customer, because my bigger picture is if I help you to have a great experience with your customer, especially a customer that's never ever tried vintage sewing machines before, they're going to be more likely to tell other people about their great experience. And then once they start, assuming you've done a good job of prepping that machine for your customer and they love the way it sews, then they're going to be telling other people, and it's the process of multiplication. If 2 people have a great experience, you're not just converting 2 people to loving vintage, you're converting all the people in their circles of influence as well, because they're going to tell them. they're going to tell them they had a great experience. Whether it's from my workshop or from your place, that's my goal. I want them to fall in love with vintage. Don't you? All right, just double checking. Okay, so now we're going to anchor it on the back. We're going to anchor it also across the front like this on both sides to make that nice and secure and get us a step closer to having this machine adequately protected. And I am applying some pressure across these points when I strap that down. Again, making it a single unit. That's our goal. Single unit. And on this end again, where that stretch wrap's shifted a little bit, I got to be aware of that so I don't catch the edge of that veneer. So I kind of came down and brought it to the right a little bit so that I don't mess up that veneer that is exposed a little bit. Alright, and now on the edges as well. I am just about done with this cold, which I am really happy to announce that because it has been a little bit of a nightmare. Especially as I try to stay busy and do premieres as well. I'm on the phone with customers regularly. It's easy to strain that voice, isn't it? Okay, so now and I should do something real quick before I get disoriented. Oh goodness, that is not a light machine, let me tell you. Again, thinking about the customer and trying to make it easy for them, I always try to mark which is the front of the machine, because that can be helpful when you're going through a packing process. So I'm just writing, if you can't see it in the camera, I'm writing front, and then I always put a little bit of tape across the top of that, because permanent marker on certain surfaces can get really, well, you know, it can be a mess. It can be real smeary. Okay, so now that we've done that, I've done that before I forgot to do it. Now we're looking at the back of the machine, and I'm just going to be checking to make sure that we have this anchored down properly as well. And again, just lightly press down as you kind of go through the process of this. Now we're going across the back, because this right now is totally loose, see? So we have to do what? If you just said make it a single unit, pat yourself on the back. Or give yourself a high five, or whatever it is you do when you're celebrating by yourself and no one's watching and you're like, they can't think I'm weird because they don't know I just did that. Alright. So we've got that anchored down nice and secure now as well. I'm feeling it with my hands to make sure I don't have any little edges that are not anchored properly, that are not secure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and step out of your way so you can kind of see that first of all. So again, we've got our 6 layers here. We've gone through all those steps. We have our 8 layers here. And now we have to lift this up and do the same thing. Same thing to the front. So I've got to get more bubble wrap, and in the meantime I'm going to do a real quick search. See if I can get us a little bit more music. And it kind of helps me as well, quite honestly. It kind of helps me to be inspired as I'm going through all this. Well, it sounded like a marathon, didn't it? As I'm going through all this. I can do it, Adrian! Alright, this one is called They May Not. No idea what that means. I didn't turn the volume up either, it's a louder song. Alright, if you're getting dehydrated, drink water. Drink water. I think I made this one a little bit longer, that's okay. All right. So now we got 2 layers. I'm going to go and kind of drop this down and get ourselves up to 4. And now we're going to fold it lengthwise. To get us up to 8 layers. Yeah, I did make this longer. See how much further it's sticking out on each end? So what I do then is I just cut it back with the scissors a little bit. First of all, I'm going to cut back the music a little bit. It's almost like watching TV where they turn the commercials up. Don't you hate that? Certain people, when they produce music, they like ratchet it up much higher than it needs to be. Of course, I guess that's subjective, isn't it? Kind of like saying to a young teenager, I think your music is too loud. What? I think your music is too loud. What? Yeah, you get the idea. Now we're kind of cutting this back a little bit. There we go. See that the whole world can be fixed if you have enough stretch wrap, tape, and a pair of scissors. That's my new philosophy. I'm going to recommend that to all those people that are running for president right now. If they want to fix all the problems, just have those things. Right? Okay, so hopefully this one doesn't crank up too. This one is called My Town to Town. There is a science, I'm sure, in naming a song, but... Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor it across the top here to make this a single unit, and to anchor it so it doesn't fall off. And I am intentionally kind of pulling it together right around taut to that handle so that the handle is exposed, but there's no gap points across there. And any of you have said, hey, he does this, he's all done. Remember, we haven't protected the bottom yet. We still have to protect the bottom. should turn this a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing off camera. You see that? Yeah, you can see that now. Okay, well I picked another song. You can kind of look at that edge. So we finished off that edge, and right now once we finish off the front and the back and the other end, we're going to have a very nicely protected case, with the exception of the bottom, which we also have to protect. Ooh, I love this one. This has been on so many of my videos. I'm glad it's royalty free through the wonderful people at YouTube, or I'd be paying some money. This is called Invitation to the Castle. Alright, so let's focus on... Oh, this is hilarious. I made this just long enough. I went to the effort of writing front on this end over here. And now because it's extended a little bit further down, I'm going to have to write it all over again. Ah! Oh well, that's okay. I've got enough Sharpies, I think. Hey, look at it, I've gotten shorter. Alright, so for the second time, just to prove that I might be able to spell, I'm writing front again. Yep. No harm, no foul, huh? Alright, so now we're going to lift it up and rotate it so you can see this edge. We have to finish off this edge now. And the next one is called Emotional Aftermath. Kind of sounds like that too, doesn't it? And I can see that part of that excess that we cut off, I'll be able to use to protect this area right here. Otherwise, that's going to be exposed. So I'm going to reach back down into my... Or I could just use that extra piece right there. I think I'll use that extra piece. Yeah, just a little gap point right there. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. And we don't want to leave any gap points. So now we're going to use our little spare piece here, which is also 8 layers. Just going to clip the little tail off. We will make this a single unit as well. Well, I'm going to do this first. Take this. Oh boy, don't you hate tape when it sticks to itself? Here, let me do this on top. Right now I've got static electricity that is just totally messing with me. Yeah, I'm going to give up on that piece. And I even lotioned my hands up before, knowing that that would at least reduce that factor of static electricity a little bit. Good gravy, I just did it again. Any of you are laughing, you're totally entitled. Son of a gun. No, you're not. No, you're not. Not this time. Not this time, buddy. Aha! Alright, so we've got our little piece now finally cocooned so it can't fight me anymore. We're going to get it into place to protect that area that had a little bit of a gap point. Make that a single unit as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of turn this around so you can see minus our needing to do the bottom of the machine, obviously, the impact that we were able to bring. So there's our front times 2. And again, we have 6 layers of bubble wrap reinforced, made a single unit here. We have 8 layers up here. Keep rotating it like this. There's our other side. The back. And then our other side here. So we've done a real good job now of making this a single unit. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strap some tape across the top of here from end to end just to reinforce and to protect this bubble wrap a little bit more. And then we'll see if we have time to work on the bottom. I'm kind of looking at my battery and we may be able to, we may not. We'll give it a shot. And you know the rest once we get it into the tote, the packing peanuts and such. And again, pick your container based on the job. As I showed Tammy, my normal container, which is certainly not a small container. My normal container is an 18-gallon, but to do this right for Tammy, I couldn't go. I'll kind of show you. This is my normal container right here. See it? That's my normal container. And you can kind of see on the front of here, if I come towards the camera, that's the size of this container. Well, that works fine for most of my machines, but that is not going to work for Tammy's machine with this Bentwood cover, so I had to go with this one, which instead of being 18 gallons is 35 gallons and quite a bit larger. So if you happen to have I got this one at Walmart. If you happen to have a Walmart or another favorite retailer of yours nearby, this is a container that I would strongly recommend that you use if you're looking to ship a vintage machine that's in a Bentwood cover, especially a full-size Bentwood cover like Tammy's. Okay? Because the machine I recently introduced that's for sale is in a Bentwood cover, but it's considerably smaller than this. Not all the Bentwood covers were the same size, obviously. They built them to fit the machines. Actually, that'd be kind of fun to show you visually, because I'm visual too. Let me move this to the back. I just don't want to hurt my little guy here. So this is a full-size Bentwood cover, and now if I can locate it, This is the machine that I just showed you, the 1919 Singer 128 that I'm going to be offering for sale once I finalize it. Look at the size of this Bentwood cover compared to Tammy's. So this one, if I were shipping it, it might actually fit in my original container. But again, what I'm looking for when I pack a machine in a container is I'm looking for at least 3 inches on any side of that machine, whether it's in a cover or not. So this one definitely won't fit. This one might. I haven't, you know, I'll wait and see once it's sold whether or not that's going to work. Otherwise, I'll get a different container. Again, I'm not going to cut corners in any part of my process. It's not going to happen. All right. So let me move this all the way to the front, because what we have to do now is we have to lean it back. And I use a pillow, even though it's obviously padded up extremely well. It's more psychological, being gentle and such. And just kind of lean it back. And now we can see the bottom of that container. This is where some of that original damage occurred. I don't know if you're able to see that or not. I did reinforce and repair it, but apart from trying to cut that out and fit another piece of wood in there, it is what it is. But now we have to add on the bottom of here the equivalent of probably about 4 to 6 layers of padding as well. And also I have to make this a single unit. See how that's loose on the bottom on all sides, so we also have to anchor that to this strapping to make this a single unit on both sides. Make sense? And when I notice things, I try to do it right away so I don't forget. One little brain lapse when you're dealing with a fragile machine can be the difference in it arriving safely or not. And if you happen to be planning to ship me a machine that's going to be in a Bentwood case, let me know that, because what I try to do is get a solid estimate of return shipping when that customer is getting ready to send me a machine. And if I calculate it, let's say you tell me you have a Singer 66, but you don't tell me that it's in a Bentwood case, the rate that I quote you for return shipping on that 66 without a Bentwood cover is going to be fairly significantly different than if it's in a Bentwood cover, just because I have to use a different packing process, different container, the dimensions of the container change, which impacts the shipping rate for USPS or any other carrier. They're always going to measure it because they want to try to figure out what the dimensions are, and then they try to charge you extra for that, which I understand. But you know, let me know that. Let me know that up front so that we don't have to make adjustments, you know, towards the end or midstream. So I'm just tilting it back again, so I can anchor these points as well on either end and make that a single unit. And then we'll concentrate on building that protection for the bottom. Okay, so now we're anchored. Right now we have a complete unit all the way through each layer, all the way to the point that we are right now. And all we have to do now is figure out a plan as far as protecting this. I could try, I'm actually going to grab one of the pads that, yeah, these are not going to be thick enough. Even if I layer it, these are not going to be thick enough. These are the pads that Tammy actually sent with the machine, and if you look at that unboxing, you'll see me pull them out of the box. Tammy and her husband, I believe, use these when they're working with their business out in Ohio. But these, you know, here's a real thin one, and this padding is just kind of degraded. I think these are floor mats of some sort that are recycled, and these are just, you can't feel them, but I'm telling you, they're real rigid and they're not going to allow a lot of cushion. And we want cushion, especially on the bottom of the machine. So I'm gonna forego using these, at least for now. All right, some more music and another swig of water. Oh, gumdrops! I don't remember where I was at. Did I do this one already? Motion. Oh, I think Emotional Aftermath is the one we just did. Bust the Blockbuster. I'm not making that up, folks. Okay, so now let's figure out a plan for the bottom of the machine. And again, remember the way the bottom is designed is we have a strong outside with that base that I repaired. We got it probably about an inch or more of wood, but this stuff right here in the middle is super thin, just like the material that's used to make the Bentwood covers. This is super thin stuff. So we have to extend our field of protection all the way across, and I might even add a little bit of extra to the middle just because this stuff is it's real easy to get damaged, even when the machine doesn't break free from the base. So let's see what we can come up with for this. All right, and no, I didn't measure this. I'm just going by instinct. And I always go a little bit heavier on the bottom as far as protection, so. All right, so we got 2 layers. This is so long, you can't see in the camera, but it's all the way like buckled on the floor. So I'm gonna have to kind of fold it like this and try to work it back down to shorten this up eventually. That was a short piece, wasn't it? That wasn't very nice of that song. No, I'm trying to do some bubble wrap style origami here to get this positioned right. Alright. Okay, at last. We're getting close. We're getting really close. Put that there. So what are we going to have? We're going to have 8 layers on the bottom as well. I've got 4 right here, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it up to this other joining point. And we'll be up to 8 layers of protection on the bottom as well. And what I'm going to try to do real quick is seal off these edges with some tape just to make it more of a single unit so that it's not having a tendency to pucker and to shift and everything. It's still going to do that a little bit, but we'll try to reduce it to some extent. Kind of just fold it over and then tuck that tape back up. Same thing on this edge. Fold it over. Tuck that tape back up. So now we've kind of sealed it off a little bit. I'll just seal off this last little end over here, and then we should have a nice piece of protection to work with. And no doubt you can probably buy padding like this, but I'm kind of old school, so I would rather do it by my own hands so that I know exactly the level of protection that I'm getting versus kind of guessing based on something that's already pre-formatted. You can make your own choice when you do it. So you can kind of see we're going to have a little bit of overlap, which is exactly what I want to protect that entire bottom with 8 layers of bubble wrap. But that'll be our final phase in case my battery gives out, which I think we're down to 1 bar right now. So if it gives out, I'm going to go ahead and anchor this as I've shown you to protect this bottom. And then the last phase is I'll add probably a little bit of extra padding in the bottom of this huge container that I'm going to be dealing with, and then create that field of peanuts all the way around the container, packed in nice and tight with some of this extra stuff that I have to include that Tammy had sent with the machine. We got some extra bobbins, we've got a ruffler, it looks like, we've got some needles, we've got a instruction manual, and then the sew-offs, and then the remnants, which I'll also put the key inside of here while I am thinking about it. I'll add the key to that, and then we'll anchor that to the outside of the packing material, probably like right on the side, but I'll put it on the front side with the key so that they have Tammy and her husband or whoever helps her unpack it have access to that when this arrives. Okay, so a little bit more music. I'm going to keep plugging until the camera runs out. If it runs out, I hope, trying to get down lower, I hope that you found this helpful. Every packing job is a little bit different. I've shown you on camera how I packed Dan's 201-2 when it was going to Hawaii. And I've shown you other packing jobs as well. This is one that's specifically for if you're going to be shipping a machine that is in an anchored base and that has a Bentwood cover. So hopefully this proves helpful to you. Okay? All right, more music. More water. Oh wow, this next one is perfect. It's called Motion Sickness. And it kind of fits that too. So because we're going to want to have sufficient overlap on both sides, I would bring this just so it's about a ½ an inch above that edge, just about a ½ an inch, and then we'll have to try to anchor that into place. My little wicker mat is starting to shed, so I periodically have to flick off little pieces of my mat that are getting attached to the machine. Okay, now I have to put it temporarily on its side so I can get to the edges as well. And this is more of a balance act, so be real careful if you're doing this with a full-size Bentwood cover. You don't want it to all of a sudden go Tim Burr on you, that's for sure. To look up and make, yep, my camera's still running. Again, if it just dies all of a sudden, I really appreciate you attending this premiere. I hope you find it useful and that you can apply these packing principles to your unique packing job, whatever it is. Keep a hand on there. Okay, the next one is called The Bronx is Burning. We played this one before in another premiere. I know we have. The Bronx is Burning. Well, that's, if you're from New York, no offense, okay? No offense. And notice as well I'm kind of pulling it taut, especially on this last edge. I'm pulling it taut so that we've got a nice, smooth, even field of protection all the way across the bottom of the machine. Here's more of my wicker on the side. All right, bring it back down easily. Well, there you go. I mean, that is the way, in my opinion, if you want to be able to ship a machine that's in an anchored base with a Bentwood cover, this is what you need to do in order to ensure that that arrives safely on the other end. My final steps are going to be to create a bed of protection across the bottom of that tote that this is going to go into, so that we've got even additional cushion on the bottom to give it kind of a cushy ride, and then to build that base of protection around this unit inside of that tote, to make sure that every edge has at least 2 to 3 inches, preferably 3 inches or more of protection all the way around this Singer 1591, this 1953 Singer 1591 that is heading out to Ohio to a very anxious Tammy Cooper, who has been following this very carefully, each phase of it, and we've been communicating as well. So the only part of this unit that we have exposed intentionally is this handle, so that when Tammy and her husband receive it out there, they're able to grab this and safely lift it out of the packing tote. And before I forget to do it, or end up leaving it on my workbench potentially, right to the front of here, I'm going to tape this little baggie that has the fragmented wood chips that I didn't use in the restoration, along with the keys, so that when they get this totally unpacked, they're going to be able to unlock this Bentwood cover and get to the machine. Wouldn't it be horrible if I left this, if I forgot it? So there it is. You're my witnesses. The key, the little fragments are right there. And then we also have, beyond that, we just have a couple other things we're going to I'll probably end up packing this bag and these additional sew-offs separately, just kind of having it, in a little satchel next to the machine in the tote. If I didn't mention it, I don't think I did, but going way back, if you rewind all the way to the beginning, the other thing that I want to mention is always make sure that your needle is through a piece of material and it's in a down position, that you rotate that balance wheel so that that needle is all the way down, basically into the bobbin case, as if it's getting ready to pull a stitch up, and that you've got that rotated down through material. You never want to ship a machine with that needle bar in the up position for a variety of reasons. Needle bars are a little bit more vulnerable. In extreme situations, they can get bent. But beyond that, you don't want to have that machine arrive with a bent needle, and then you have that customer or that friend or that family member, whoever it is, tries to put that machine to use, and all of a sudden it's doing all kinds of crazy, funky things. And they're like, this is not good. This is not good. We want it to be good, right? Make it good. So, God bless you guys. I hope you found this helpful. Again, the only thing I'm going to do now, because I'm really concerned that we're going to run out of battery power, is I'm going to get this entire unit now into this huge tote that it's going to be shipped in. Again, on the bottom of that, this unit, I'm going to put a bed of probably 2 to 3 inches of packing peanuts to give it a cushy ride. and then build around it as well in that tote with packing peanuts as well. And then get the rest of this stuff in there. And then you've seen me in other videos strap that tote down and anchor all the points on it. So you can watch another packing video if you want to remember how to do that. Okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this premiere now before it ends abruptly. I'll actually kneel so I can be at a height where I don't have to do anything weird. So again, I really hope you found this helpful. Tammy, thank you for the opportunity. This will be shipped today. Heading out to, I think it's, I don't remember the city. It's something like Findlay or something like that, Ohio. So God bless. Stay tuned for other great videos like this where you learn something new and you watch me do all the work. Hey, I don't care. I got a bag of Skittles. I got extra bottles of water. I'm good. God bless, folks. Take care.